My guest today is one of the best Arizona State softball players of all time. She helped ASU win the national championship in 2008 and was inducted into the Sun Devil Athletics Hall of Fame class of 2019. Kaitlin Cochran. Kaitlin, such an honor to be talking with you today. We were talking a little bit beforehand, about how you got into teaching. I think it's really cool that you're doing that. What do you find most rewarding about being a teacher?
Um, just getting to build those relationships with students and making that connection with them and seeing their progress over any school year and really beyond. So when those kids get to come back like a few years later and they remember some of those moments that were either tough or even moments that were really great where they really got something and that helped them later on in their academic careers, like I think that just is what makes my job worthwhile, and just seeing their success and seeing them thrive beyond my classroom too is something that I truly cherish.
Have there been any lessons that perhaps you learned throughout your softball career, that you've been able to apply to your teaching career?
Absolutely. I think of me being a teacher, I'm kind of like my coach. That I had growing up on many different teams. And, I'm coaching my players, my students, in other words. And so I try to go in with that mindset where sometimes, depending on the day, kids have a lot of emotions, a lot of range of emotions too. So sometimes you may have to give them that tough love like a coach would. Sometimes, you have to nurture them and say, hey, they're having a tough moment. You need to recognize those tough moments and just kind of reading the room. As a coach, I thought my players and I thought the coaches that I played for specifically, they did such a nice job of understanding me as a player. And when I was having a tough time, where they could maybe give me some space or, nurture me in those moments and help me out when I needed it. And then there were those times where, I needed some tough love. I just needed to kind of learn a lesson in that moment, no matter how tough it was, and kind of grow as a result of those times.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into a bit of your background now. You attended Rosary Academy. What would you say are some of your favorite memories from Rosary?
Oh gosh. I have a ton of memories. It was an all girls Catholic private high school, so kind of a unique setup. And what was really interesting about that dynamic was just the fact that I had the opportunity I mean, really just work in such a smaller setting. I'd always gone to public high or not public high school, but public school growing up, and then transitioning to a private school and learning how to, or not even learning how to, but building some relationships with some pretty great ladies and teachers and admin really throughout the whole school was very special to me, just because it was such a different dynamic. It was smaller, it was more intimate, but we really got to explore our relationship with Christ, and we really had that opportunity to study that and to become close with that, and then bond as a result of that too. So I really appreciated that dynamic in high school, and then of course playing softball with some of like what I call my sisters in the game. I still talk with some of them to this day, and they're great people, and I've always learned so much from them. And we had some great moments like winning the league championship, getting to the semifinals in our CAF tournament, our playoff tournament, and those were some really cool times just to be able to cherish and always take with us
For
as we move
sure.
on in our lives. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. How did your time as a student athlete at Rosary help prepare you for your experiences in college?
Well, I will say, especially from an academic standpoint, Rosary really prepared me for that next level in my college education. It was a pretty rigorous high school. We had rigorous classes. And so learning how to balance the softball or the sports and the academics was a huge help in preparation for that next level at ASU. And, just holding myself to a high standard and really remembering, why we were going to college in the first place, which was to to get a college degree. That was like a huge deal for me. I remember back then was getting that piece of paper, as my parents always said, that fancy piece of paper, and getting to have that taken care of through sports too was an even bigger deal. And getting to basically combine my passion for academics with my passion for softball was just really awesome at ASU to have that opportunity and to kind of marry those two passions of mine. I really, really loved and really appreciate, at the end of the day, because I know not everyone gets that opportunity.
Now, how did you decide to attend ASU? What factors played a role in your decision to come here?
You know, um, I was really blessed with the opportunity to play with some of my teammates in travel ball also in college. And I would say Katie Burkhart, who was our pitcher when I was there at ASU, she was a huge factor. I had some great coaches that recruited me in Linda Wells and Matthew Weiner. He kind of followed me around a lot, and I felt like I developed a great relationship with those coaches, and they just kind of convinced me that ASU was the right place for me. I remember visiting other schools and had great experiences there too. There were phenomenal coaching staffs, campuses too, academics. They had so many things that they could offer. But just when I stepped on ASU's campus, I felt at home. I felt like this was my place where I could balance the academics with the athletics. And I also had that comfort with just girls that I knew on the team and that I had played with ahead of time. They made me feel really comfortable knowing that they had such a positive experience at ASU too. So, yeah.
Yeah, right on, right
Yeah.
on. Your first game wearing maroon and gold was the opener in 2006. It was against Utah State.
Yeah.
Your first hit as a Sun Devil came in the third inning of
Mhm.
that game. Do you remember what emotions you were feeling in that very first game?
Yeah, I feel like the biggest emotion that I felt, especially after that first hit, was relief. I was just a ball of nerves that whole weekend. I would say playing in college softball, just because I was realizing my dream. Playing on a at a Pac-10 school, that was a big dream of mine. Playing for Arizona State and representing the university as best as I could, that was really important to me. And so I kind of put a lot of pressure on myself. So I was feeling it a little bit, to say the least. And to get that first hit, just like, oh, like I could finally take a deep breath, and I felt a lot better after that. And I think, once that happened, I was able to kind of take a little bit of extra pressure off of me and just enjoy the game and enjoy and embrace the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And from that point on, I mean, you went on to have an amazing freshman season. You were named Pac-10 Newcomer of the Year. Who were some of the veterans on that team who, who perhaps gave you, some advice throughout that first season?
Well, Katie Burkhart, she was just a huge support system. I felt like for me, I had other support systems in Kristen Miller, who was the catcher. Mindy Cowles was a huge support. I would always say, like, they called themselves, I think, the Fab Five, if I remember correctly. It was the class ahead of me. They were very, very crucial in just how well we did at ASU and just how they led our team. Jackie Vasquez, she was great. I know Rhiannon Baca, she was a part of that Fab Five. Kristen Miller, Mindy Cowles, Katie Burkhart. I mean, they were very, very crucial in my success and my transition from playing in high school to then college softball, because it was a much different game, much different experience, being on my own for the first time away from home. Yeah, they definitely helped me out. And I had a ton of other supports on that team, with our coaching staff and really the rest of the team that year. Like, there wasn't really, throughout my career, there wasn't anyone that didn't, contribute, I felt like, to my success or our team success. I had so many teammates that I could just like go on and on about. Like, they were great, they were super positive, they were nice. The biggest thing was they were there for us, they were there for each other. And, we were there to accomplish, one common goal year in and year out. We wanted to get to OKC, we wanted to win the World Series, and we were willing to do whatever it took to get there, and to do it together, I think was the most important thing.
I mean, you came on campus and you immediately made an impact. How huge was that for you to come in your first season and really make a huge impact right out of the gate?
It was definitely huge. It was surprising, I would say, for me, just because, everyone always says your freshman season can kind of be kind of a bit of a roller coaster. And to have a successful freshman season, I think that was attributed to the support system that I had around me and my coaching staff, and with my teammates. They were, I will always say that they were crucial to my success, and they're a huge reason as to why I was successful, because I felt comfortable around them. I felt like I could lean on them when I needed to. I hope that they would say that about me too. But I felt the love, I felt the support. And even, in our whole athletic department at ASU, I think I always said it was harder for me to fail than to succeed because of all the support that we got, all the extra help, all the extra things, as student athletes that we get, all the extra supports that we get. I really tried to utilize those as much as possible, and I was super grateful for them. And I just felt like everyone in our athletics department was, again, just always so supportive of us. And they were doing everything in their power to make sure that we were successful on the field and off the field too.
Now let's talk about that magical 2008 season. So, after 2 years of making the World Series but falling short, and then, unfortunately, having to see U of A, of all teams, win it,
Yeah.
back-to-back years, what was the mentality for you and the team going into 2008?
I just think that year, again, with the senior class that was leading us, the Fab Five, they were relentless. Like, they were not gonna come out of that season without us, having the trophy at the very end. And I think just having that mindset, that relentless mindset, was really important to that group of girls. And it, trickled on down to the rest of the team. They, like, we all wanted to be successful for them. It was their last ride. Of course, we wanted to win too. We had gotten to OKC at that point in my career, 2 times in a row. And, we really wanted to prove ourselves as a team too. Cause, a lot of people, they say things, our opponents, they'll say things here and there, and we really wanted to prove ourselves on the biggest stage. And we were very, very determined to do that. And so if we had to put in extra time after practice, we would. If we had to, look at tapes of other teams or film of other teams, we would. And, we did whatever it was necessary for us to always come out with a W. And, we were not quite undefeated that year, but we were pretty close to it. And I think that was why, because we did the little things, and we were willing to make the little things the big things, and do it to the absolute best of our ability. And we were able to accomplish that, and do those things in crucial moments like in OKC. And I think that's why we were successful, because we had kind of been there, done that, and we knew what the atmosphere was like. And so we were prepared. And as a result, we were successful. So, yeah.
And something that I think is super cool about that season is I believe, I'm pretty sure ASU beat U of A in all three meetings that season.
Mm. Yeah, that was pretty exciting. Yeah, it definitely wasn't like that before. I think, they had won like 8 national championships at that point. They had the Olympic coach on their team at the time. They had, I think, future Olympians on their team too as well. And they were certainly always a team that you respected, and you knew you were going to get a great game from. So for us to have a series against them where we were undefeated against them was awesome. It was definitely a great experience. It was a memorable one. But that, I think that's when we knew too that we were definitely a team to not mess around with. And we knew that we could compete against really anyone at that point, because they had proven themselves so many times in years past.
Now, because of how, just great a player you were when it gets to the World Series, you got intentionally walked, quite a bit. But what I think is really cool about that is that, those walks, they still help the team in a huge way because in your teammates, they would make the other teams pay for doing the intentional walks.
Oh, for sure. As much as I would have loved to have stood up there at the plate and hit and have an opportunity to hit, I mean, I felt like I always knew at any time that that happened, I was going to score, and it was going to be a fun game in that sense because I loved running the bases. I loved scoring runs for my team. I loved being able to contribute any way that I could, however that looked. So yes, I certainly wanted to swing the bat, but if I had to run the bases, then I had to run the bases. That was my job that game. And I mean, my teammates did a phenomenal job of scoring me. I mean, almost every time. So again, it was exciting. It wasn't what I expected, but it's definitely something that again was super memorable and awesome to experience from that standpoint.
Yes, for sure. And and of course, eventually.
Mhm.
You got to show off your power on the biggest stage. You know where I'm going with this. Game two against A&M, chance to win the Natty. ASU's up by one in the top of the fifth, and you hit this three-run homer to left field. Gosh, what do you remember from that moment?
Just a whirlwind of emotions. Again, it was kind of that relief, like, yes, finally, like I got an opportunity to hit, and the fact that it was successful, the fact that it was a home run was like really exciting because I had never done that at OKC before. And to do that on the biggest stage in the biggest game for us was awesome. And to see my teammates embrace me at home plate, like that was really cool too. And again, you felt it in the air that year that we were a team that you couldn't mess around with. Like you just knew that we were one of those teams that was going to truly be contending for a national championship. And to get that opportunity and then to be successful with that was, again, just so awesome. Like I absolutely love that. And it's a memory that I will always carry with me forever.
Oh, of course, of course. And then the celebration after that last strikeout. I mean, it's iconic. What else can I say? And
Yeah.
then I saw that afterwards you were interviewed by Holly Rowe
Yes.
for ESPN. And now and I gotta say, just watching that interview and hearing the emotion, in your voice, I mean, it's powerful. It's powerful stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it was just a whirlwind of emotions, and I was just so happy for my team that we won. I was happy that I was able to contribute in a different way, like versus being blocked. But yeah, it was a great night, great week in OKC, and it was just one of the best times of my life.
And then after winning the championship, just what were the coming days and weeks like after that? Do you remember any big celebrations back in Tempe or anything like that?
Definitely. When we got off the plane, we got onto our bus like we normally would, and there was a big line of cars that were behind us. I think even like police cars too were around us, and they were honking their horns, congratulating us as we got off the bus too. There was all of our fans that were congratulating us. There was news people, people like having interviews with us, and also I think I remember too that year specifically in OKC. John Kruk was also commentating in the games. I think he did like baseball tonight for ESPN, but he was a big fan of softball, and so he wanted to commentate some of the games, and he did at OKC. And he knew I was a big baseball fan, and I think he had, I think it was Joe Torre at the time, the manager of the Dodgers, um, talked to Andre Ethier, who was my favorite player, also an alum of ASU for baseball. And he called me and he congratulated me on us winning the national championship, which I thought was really cool because I was just a super fan. So I could barely speak on the phone because I was so excited. But he was so nice and very very humble and just very congratulatory of our win and winning the national championship. And so that was also another cool moment. And from what I understand, John Kruk kind of arranged for that moment to happen. So I'm super grateful to him. And he was awesome to talk to as well throughout that week in OKC and beyond even. So it was cool to like have some of those moments.
Do you still have any sort of mementos, from the national championship?
Oh yeah. I have the shirt that we got from winning the national championship. They always hand you shirts like right at the end saying, national champions. And so I have that shirt. I think there's like still some Gatorade on it because we dunked our coach in Gatorade. And I think I have like the hat. I think we got like a watch too from the NCAA just saying, we won the national championship. So they presented us with that award. Yeah, I mean, I've got a ton of little mementos like that, and even just like our jersey from that championship game, we got to keep one of the jerseys, and I think they always give that to us at the end of our 4 years, so I would have gotten it the very next year. But yeah, so we definitely got a lot of mementos. I think I have a ball signed by all the girls from the team too. And yeah, so I think that's all I can recall off the top of my head as far as mementos that I have. And of course, our national championship ring that we had. That was really cool.
And then your senior year in 2009, again, another fantastic season. In your last college game was also in the College World Series against Alabama.
Mhm.
Following the end of that season, what do you remember reflecting on the most during that point in time, knowing that you really had left this amazing legacy in Tempe?
Oh, well, I mean, it was certainly sad, like to end the season, especially the way that we did. Ending it in OKC is always awesome, but to end it in that game in that way, we lost on a really crucial hit. I think it was like a grand slam, if I remember correctly. And I just remember watching that like go over my head, and I'm like, man, like that was just such a blow, I think, during that game. But it was to say the very least, it was emotional. That was like some of the best times of my life, and to have those memories. I mean, it was tough that they were memories and not something that I was creating. And so the fact that that was done just was very, very sad. But also I think I was ready for that next chapter of my life. I had a great 4 years in Tempe, and it was time to kind of pass the baton, as they say, to the next group of girls. And since then the program's done amazing, and I'm just super grateful for seeing the program continue on and seeing some of my alum friends come back and visit the university, contribute to the program specifically, and make it even bigger and better than what it was when we were there.
You were inducted into the Sun Devil Athletics Hall of Fame in 2019. And, just in general, what did that mean to you to be honored by ASU in such a big way?
I mean, it was a huge honor. Again, it was unexpected. I always attribute my success to the coaches, the staff, my teammates. I mean, they're my family, and I felt like that's why I was so successful. And to receive that honor personally, I mean, I felt like I wanted to share in that moment because they were part of the reason why I was successful there. And to be honored like that, especially with other athletes at ASU that have been there, a ton of great athletes too, was really special. And that was just a very unique and special experience that I was very, very touched by and very grateful for.
Your head coach at ASU was
Mhm.
Clint Myers. I believe you and him both arrived in Tempe like the same time, same year.
Yeah.
What were the most important things that you would say that you learned from him?
Oh, well, he had this saying, greatness is a way of life. And, you know, it's true. You know, everything that you do, you want to do to the best of your ability. You don't want to just do mediocrely. And I think that's like the biggest lesson that I took away from him. He always gave it his all as a coach. He always gave his best effort. He was always prepared for any game, any practice, any day that he was a coach, and he was there for us at a moment's notice. And to have him as our coach, especially when I was recruited by a different coach, I didn't know what to expect. So that was kind of like up in the air. And I even remember the first day that I was there was his first day as the coach. And I mean, he just said without hesitation, we're going to win a Pac-10 championship. We're going to win a national championship. And we all kind of looked at him like he had five heads, like, okay, like this is your first year, like, okay, like whatever. But, you know, he really just changed the whole mindset of the program. And he really convinced us what felt like overnight, but just in really just a very short amount of time that, you know, we could compete at the highest level. We could compete against the best teams in the nation. And that we were someone to be reckoned with as well. And just not having ever that doubt in us was really truly special. Because you can always tell with coaches if they have that confidence in you or not. And you could tell that he did. He had that confidence in himself to be able to coach us to that level. And it showed. I mean, he knew the game, his staff knew the game, and they knew how to get us to that point. So I 1000% give him like a ton of credit, if not all the credit, for the success that we had at ASU, because he was truly and still is a special coach and someone that should always be remembered in the record books for his success and his ability to coach anyone.
What would you say is the overall impact that Arizona State has had on your life?
Oh, it's had a huge impact. I I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't go there. You know, I was just a kid coming out of high school, and I came out as a young woman, or at least I like to think so. And I just grew a lot. And there was a lot of experiences that were tough, that were great, that were kind of in between. And I was able to grow through that on my own, away from the home that I knew in California. And it's because of, again, like the support system that I had at ASU, from the athletic department, from my coaching staff, from my friends, from my teammates, who were also my friends, to everyone that I came across, my professors, my teachers. They shaped me into the person that I am today, and they got me to that next stage in my life. That you know, if it wasn't for them, if it wasn't for them caring about my success, caring about my academic as well as athletic career, I mean, I don't know where I would be. And they helped get me to that next point, and I'm always going to be forever grateful for all that they did, because I know there was more than just me at ASU that they were taking care of. And they always took that extra time with me and with anyone else at ASU to make sure that we got the support that we need and we had the success that we wanted and craved.
Hey, for sure, for sure. And in addition to everything that we have talked about, you're also a mother, we know, which is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
So far for you, what's that experience been like?
Oh, it's life changing. I love my baby boy. He's so precious. And you know, they always say being a parent, it absolutely changes you, and it does. He's made me a better person, a better mom, hopefully, because I'm only a year into this. He's still a little infant, but he he's my everything. He's my husband, and my son are my everything. And it's been the greatest blessing, the greatest joy of my life. And I just hope I can pass on the knowledge that has been passed on to me to him. And I just hope he gets to accomplish and experience everything that he wants to, whatever that looks like. And I want him to just know how loved he is and how supported he is. And I want him to have his own path. And I want him to just experience all the things that I got to experience, from the love, the joy, and experience that. And maybe you never know, he could be a sun devil too.
That would be awesome, right?
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yes.
Keep it in the family, you know.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. Go Devils.
I also know that your faith is super important to you. How has your faith, impacted you throughout your life, in your overall journey?
I think it's kept me grounded. It's kept me centered and understanding my why, as far as why I teach, why I coach, um, how I parent, um, how I'm a partner to my husband. I think that's just very, very important to have that at the center of your life, because then it helps shape the other parts of your life too. And I will always be strong in my faith, because I always have faith that someone is watching over me, protecting me, guiding me, listening to me, whenever I need to speak to someone or just to find some guidance. I always look from within. I always look up above at God, and I just make sure that He gets me back to my center and my focus.
And last question here now. What is the biggest piece of advice that you have for student athletes who are going into college?
Um, my saying that I always lived by, because I really felt like it took me to that next level. And it sounds so simple, but it's just enjoy the journey. You only get to do this once. So embrace every moment. There will be times of struggle, but you want to enjoy it. You want to really invest in yourself and invest in those moments that you are creating for yourself, because you want to be able to look back on them and say, yeah, like I gave it my all, and I had a blast doing it. And so that would be like my number one thing. It's just to enjoy the journey, embrace the journey, love the journey, and remember it. Take it with you always, because it's not always going to be there. So it's definitely something you can look back on, but you don't want to take it for granted.
Thank you so much, Kaitlin, for giving me some of your time today and being able to talk with you. It's truly an honor. So just thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time, and go Devils. Woo!